Hello students, I'm Dr. Himanshu Kanpal, and in this video we are going to study the detailed summary of the novel Kanthapura written by Raja Rao, one of the greatest artists among Indo-Anglian novelists. Raja Rao's novel Kanthapura, published in 1938, seems to have provided the freer form as well as a new dimension of sensibility, recognizably Indian and contemporaneous. The significance of Kanthapura is twofold. As Raja Rao's masterpiece, it exemplifies his greatest qualities as an artist and as the chief work of the earlier phase in the evolution of his genius. It illustrates the concerns and prepossessions of Rao's earlier period. It is a unique novel in one respect. It is the most successful work of art which has been inspired by the Gandhian movement. It is also a monumental depiction of the early phase of India's freedom struggle, not at the level of metropolitan life and national leaders, but at the grassroots, at the level of small village cut off from the mainstream of life. In the foreword to Kanthapura, Raja Rao set forth what was to be a lifelong literary concern, conveying the Indian experience to the larger world in a language besides his native Kannada. In his foreword to Kanthapura, Raja Rao reveals his awareness of the need to find a creative approximation of the Western novel form to the Indian experience. Apart from the obvious Indian accent in its language, Kanthapura reveals the author's skill in achieving a fusion of theme, form, and discourse at once authentically Indian and convincingly modern. We think in India, think quickly, we talk quickly, and when we move quickly, he wrote. There must be something in the sun of India that makes us rush and tumble and run on, he added. We have neither punctuation nor the treacherous ats and ons to bother us. We tell one interminable tale. Episode follows episode, and when our thoughts stop, our breath stops, and we move on to another thought. This was and still is the ordinary style of our storytelling. I have tried to follow it myself in this story. Kanthapura is a work in which the fictional form is endowed with the freedom of the romance and the amplitude of the epic and the symbolic centrality of the fable. It is Itihas and Purana both unified into a kavya. Raja Rao's Kanthapura is one of the finest novels to come out of mid 20th century India. Kanthapura is the most prolific and idealistic novel written by Raja Rao. Rao wrote this novel while in France, which is typically miles away from his homeland India. The prime purpose of this novel is to give an account of Gandhi's fight for freedom starting the year 1919 to 1930. The novel as well gives an account of Gandhi's influence on the Indian freedom movement. Kanthapura is the story of how Gandhi's struggle for independence from the British came to a typical village, Kanthapura, in South India. Kanthapura is the penumbra of a village significantly called Kanthapura, with its life and politics, its entrenched orthodoxy, and extreme conservatism. The action of the novel dates back to 1930s when the Gandhian ideas aroused the popular emotion and sentiment and paved the way for non-violent destruction of the imperialistic hegemony. Kanthapura is the story of how Gandhi's struggle for independence from the British came to a typical village, Kanthapura, in South India. Young Murthy. back from the city with new ideas, cuts across the ancient barriers of caste to unite the villagers in a non-violent action which is met with violence by landlords and police. The novel is not divided into chapters. It is written, the novel has 19 parts. These parts have not been numbered by the novelist and no separate titles are given to them. The dramatic tale unfolds in a poetic, almost mythical style which conveys as never before the rich textures of Indian rural life. The novel Kanthapura is the story of village named Kanthapura. In the beginning of the novel, the village referred to as our village is Kanthapura. It is situated in the Western Ghats. It is a small village. There are two shopkeepers. Kinchamma is the goddess of the village. The village is divided into quarters for the various communities. The river Hemavati flows near the village. There is a temple called Kanthapuri temple. Dor, though he had not passed even the intermediate class, was called the university graduate. He wore a khadi dhoti and called himself a Gandhi man. Murthy was a young Brahmin. He was quite generous and serene. He was the son of Narsamma. The narrator is an old woman imbued with the legendary history of the region who knows the past of all the characters and comments on their actions with sharp-eyed wisdom. Her narrative and the way she tells it evokes the spirit of India's traditional folk epics. Kanthapura is a 1938 novel written by Indian author Raja Rao. It tells the story of Mahatma Gandhi's independence movement from 1919 to 1930, describing its impact on the caste-ridden South Indian village of Kanthapura. The story is narrated by Achaka, an elderly woman from the village's dominant Brahmin caste who chronicles the events in the village. The central character of the novel is Murthy, is a young, educated Brahmin man. Originally from Kanthapura, Murthy moves to city to study. While living there, he becomes a follower of Gandhi and an activist against the caste system, British colonial rule, and social inequality. When Murthy returns to Kanthapura, he becomes the leader of a non-violent independence group following in Gandhi's footsteps. When he is excommunicated by the village priest and his mother dies from the shame, Murthy moves in with Rangamma, a young woman from the village. Rangamma, a wealthy widow, joins Murthy's group and becomes his second in command. Murthy is asked to spread the word of Gandhi's teaching at a rally of lower caste villagers who work on a local coffee, that is Skeffington Coffee Estate, which was very big. And it was started by Hunter Sahib. Coolies came from the neighboring villages to work here on very little wages and lived here. In fact, no one who came here never returned to his villagers. The old Sahib treated them in a very cruel manner. They were often beaten cruelly by the foremen. After the death of the old Sahib, his nephew came. He became the new Sahib. He was not so cruel. He did not beat the coolies. He was, however, a bad character. He often took away young girls and beat their fathers or husband when they refused to send them. Once he shot dead a Brahmin clerk who refused to send his daughters. The pariahs and the other coolies invited Murthy to the state to teach them reading and writing. This led to great trouble and violence. Murthy was very much pained at the violence that took place at the Skeffington state. So, when Murthy was called to the local coffee estate, Murthy and the villagers are attacked by a colonial policemen. When the villagers retaliate, violence breaks out. Many of the villagers are hurt and others are arrested. Villagers' protest against the arrest make the situation even more violent, and Murthy is himself arrested and jailed. The group offers to pay his bail, but Murthy, feeling responsible for the violence, will not accept and instead remains in prison. In his absence, Rangama becomes the group leader and a number of village women join her. As violence from the police and the government continues, the group does not waver from their allegiance to Murthy and to Gandhi. 3 months later, when Murthy is freed, he returns to Kanthapura where he is welcomed as a hero. Rather than being a traditional novel with a neat linear structure and compact plot, Kanthapura follows the oral tradition of Indian Sthal Puran or legendary history. As Raja Rao explains in this original foreword, there is no village in India, however, that has not a rich legendary history of its own, in which some famous figure of myth or history has made an appearance. In this way, the storyteller who commemorates the past keeps a native audience in touch with its lore and thereby allows the past to mingle with the present, the gods and the heroes with ordinary mortals. The story is narrated in flashback by Achaka, a wise woman in the village. She, like her female audience, whom she addresses as sisters, had survived the turbulence of social and political change which was induced by Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi's passive resistance against the British government. Achaka provides a detailed picture of the rural setting, establishing both an ambience and a rhythm for the novel. It is clear that her speech and idiomatic expression are meant to express a distinctively feminine viewpoint, an extraordinary achievement for a male Indo English novelist. Achaka quickly creates a faithful image of an Indian way of life, circumscribed by tradition and indebted to its deities, of whom Kenchamma, the great and bounteous goddess, is made the village protectress. She is invoked in every chapter, for the characters never forget that her power resides in her past action. It is she who humanizes the villagers, and their chants and prayers ring out from time to time. The narrator establishes the parameters of the story with an old and new legends, while Kenchamma and Shiva are remembered for their marvelous feats and intervention in human affairs. Analogies are sometimes drawn with contemporary figures such as Gandhi, who served to turn fact and history into folklore and who provide the motive for political struggle. At the beginning, while there are simply rumors of Gandhi's activities, the villagers follow their customary routines. Then Murthy, a young dedicated Brahmin inspired by Gandhi, returns to Kanthapura to propagandize the cause of Indian National Congress and Gandhi's Satyagraha Truth Force movement. The colonial masters, nicknamed Red Men for their ruddy complexions, are a palpable tyrannical presence but are sensed only obliquely at the beginning via the mysterious passing policeman who is treated as spy and who consequently seeks refuge on the Skeffington coffee estate run by a brutal gang boss. Murthy's homecoming was the beginning of action. He gave the news of Mahatma Gandhi's Dandi March program. He advised every villager to prepare for non-violent action against the government. Don't touch the government campaign was to start again the next week. They decided not to pay any taxes to the government. The news of Mahatma Gandhi's arrest came. It was decided to begin the campaign on Friday. Murthy does not immediately win favor. He is opposed by Bhatt, a reactionary who sneers at Gandhi's vagabondage, and by fellow Brahmins who are increasingly upset by Gandhi's acceptance of untouchables. The caste system The caste system, so much a part of Indian history, is shaking apart under Gandhi's example, and the social pattern of Kanthapura, delineated by separate quarters for Brahmin, Pariah, Potter, Weaver, and Shudra, is distributed by the progress being made by the untouchables. Even Murthy's own mother is revolted by his Gandhian percepts, and Murthy brings matters to a head by eliciting Patel Rangegowda's help in starting a Congress group and encouraging the villagers to vow to speak only truth, wear no cloth but homespun khadi, and use all forms of passive resistance. This Gandhian non-violence provokes a brutal response from the authorities, and the villagers are attacked by the police. Now began the big fight. In a very large number, policemen arrived in Kanthapura. They arrested Murthy and Rangamma. Murthy and advocate Rangamma are arrested as Bhatta is uncovered as a traitor, and some Brahmins are deployed to stir fear among the villagers. The Skeffington coolies who come to live in Kanthapura were forced to move through the streets. Their women and children wept. The whole village was full of policemen. Patel Rangegowda is dismissed from his hereditary office as village executive chief, and the villagers turn to the gods for help. Many men were taken prisoners, but many more men are still free and hiding in the jungle. The radical change in the political nature of India, however, becomes apparent as the women stir into action. Rangamma, who always links Indian scripture to contemporary events, manages to inspire the women folk to dire deeds as the men are forced to hide in the jungles around the village. After Murthy is released from the prison, the political crisis deepens and the villagers' suffering increases. There is a sense that the issue is now more than mere politics. The world resembles a jungle in the battle with itself, and only Gandhi transcends this tumult, for he is like a huge mountain, unvanquished by the confusion and violence. Murthy suddenly finds himself less in sympathy with Gandhi and more attuned to Jawaharlal Nehru, the emerging modernist. When many men were taken prisoners, and many more men were still free and hiding in the jungle, 3 days passed. On Saturday, many Sahib-looking people came in cars. The fields of Rangamma, Sitaram, and Rangegowda were being auctioned. All the women gathered at Sami's house. Ratna was their chief guide now. The city boys and the Mahatma volunteers had come to help them. Many of the Kanthapura men were also there. They decided to hold a Satyanarayan Puja and go in the streets in a procession. The procession started with Ratna blowing the conch. The police inspector stopped the procession after some time. The policemen started beating the women. Men came from all round from the hiding places to protect the women. They cried, Inqilab Zindabad. The Satyagraha led by Ratna took a violent turn. There were soldiers everywhere near the fields. Coolies came from the Skeffington coffee estate and joined the Satyagrahis. Kanthapura men who were hiding in the jungle also came. There was a heavy lathi charge and firing. Many men, women, and children were wounded. Many were killed. Soldiers attacked the non-violent Satyagrahis with their rifles. Ratna tried her best to see that the fight remained non-violent from their side. 30 people gathered there. They left the village and reached Madhur. There they left their wounded persons and marched forward. Then they came to Kaveri in Mysore state. They were welcomed by the villagers who called them the pilgrims of Mahatma. It was the village Kashipura. Most of the Kanthapura villagers had left their village. Many of them had come to live in the village Kashipura in Mysore state. Many men were still in prison. Rachana, Rangama, and Sinu were in prison. Murthy, Ratna, and Rangegoda had been freed. So the villagers, however, remained faithful to Gandhi toward the end when nothing can stop the women. In spite of horrendous casualties from marching against the soldiers sent by the British, the change in the social and political nature of the country is profound. The women decide to burn down what is left of their village rather than return to it. Life, they realize, can never be the same without their Murthy, their husbands, sisters, and children who have perished in the struggle. Yet the women also recognize that they are part of history on the march. So, the climax of the novel is the great violence of chapter 18, with the men in retreat, the women in the vanguard of resistance, and the soldiers in unrelenting assault, wreaking devastation. The concluding section brings the tale full circle. 14 months later, there is an eager anticipation of Swaraj or independence for India. Of all the male heroes, only Patel Rangegoda returns briefly to Kanthapura, yet the villagers feel blessed by the goddess Kenchamma. Murthy's views has Murthy, Ratna, and Rangegoda had been freed. Murthy views had undergone some change. He had now come to believe that independence was not enough. Social customs and economic system should also change. He had become an admirer of Nehru and his views about socialism. Rangegoda also lived in Kashipura. Kanthapura was in ruins. New houses has been built on hills surrounding the village. Men from Bombay had built houses on the houses like those of city for coolies, and they owned many lanes there. In the years since Kanthapura's destruction, Achaka explains the villagers have scattered and moved on with their lives, and Murthy has been released from prison, although he gave up on Gandhi, who started to compromise with the British and decided to join Jawaharlal Nehru's movement for the equal distribution of wealth. Rangama is still in jail. And the only person who has returned to Kanthapura is Rangegoda, who tells Achaka that the village has been sold away to the city people from Bombay. So, apart from the suggested feeling of an awe inspiring experience that has rocked the village with the new tremors of new political consciousness, the observation symbolically prefigures a new dimension of experience worn out of and affected by the turmoil just past. There is still faith, but it is a faith open to circumspection and qualified not by the stillness of space but by the terrible vibrancy of time. Thus, the novel moves from time into space and again from space into time. So, Kanthapura is a minor miracle in literature. It is difficult to think of viable novel being written in which the narrator throughout is an old village woman, a novel, moreover, in which the language is a brand of English which has never been used before. Nor can one imagine that a novel which depicts the struggle of a small village to defy the strength of the ruthless owner of the coffee estate, the hidebound beast, and above all, the immense power of the British rulers would arouse interest throughout. We must also remember that the struggle is not even successful. The non-violent satyagrahis are humiliated, beaten, deprived of their lands and their jobs, and killed indiscriminately. Their women are roughly handled. On the top of it, the Mahatma, who had been the beacon light of their movement, enters into a compromise with the government, and one of the clauses in the agreement is that the areas of land revenue for the sake of which people have lost their homes and staked their lives and the chastity of their women have to be cleared by the defaulting peasants. One would think that a novel built on such a theme would be dismal and depressing, but there is nothing like this in Kanthapura, which remains an epical, exalting, and uplifting chronicle. Kanthapura does not project the Indian spirit isolately, but a living experience moving in time and space. The three levels of action in the novel, political, social, and religious, are related to a unified concept of India, both as a tradition and as a living culture, as a magnificent past to be rediscovered in the enormous present. I hope you like the video. Share, like, and subscribe. Thank you.